welcome to the Spiritual Blazer podcast. I am very excited today to be graced by Erika Beeson. Erika is a life coach and a speaker and an author. She has a new book out called The Renewal of You. And today we're going to be talking about what it means to connect back into your inner voice and your inner being and your intuition, and trusting that and letting that be your guide. So welcome, Erika. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, I am so excited to be here. I'm the one that's honored. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Erika, tell us about your journey and how you got into coming into being a coach and an author, and a little bit about your journey that led you into those passions.
Oh my goodness. You know, it feels like it's been such a long time coming. I'll be honest with you. Just to be completely transparent, I mean, I just turned 42 in July, and I think since probably my really early 20s, I always kind of felt like maybe there was just something else. Like maybe there was just something a little more. And it kind of felt like the path that I was on and the direction that I was going kind of just felt like I was another, like, you know, just part of the robot cycle or whatever. Like I was just doing what I was supposed to do. And not that I felt completely unhappy. I mean, I had a really successful career in corporate, like early on, but I just always kind of felt like there was something more. So I sort of dabbled in a few different things here and there. And honestly, over the course of some moments in life, you know, you're riding the roller coaster and sometimes you hit the bottom of the barrel a few times, you kind of start to really have to dig deep. And it was really only maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago where I finally just looked in the mirror and I said, I'm really sick of repeating this same cycle that my life has been repeating over and over. And I just knew, you know, there's that saying, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So I had to really take a good, hard, honest look in the mirror and take a deep, deep dive on my personal development and spiritual development journey. And that's kind of where it all started, and everything just started falling into place in the most beautiful ways. And all the things that I learned, you know, because you always think you know everything, right? Especially in your 20s, you're like, I got this. Like, I got this. It's fine. I got this. And then life oftentimes hands you a big slice of humble pie. And it was kind of through that humility that I really allowed myself to just crack wide open and, you know, look at the things about myself that I did not love, and I learned to love them. And, you know, a million other things that we could spend many hours talking about. But the bottom line is, once I did learn these amazing things to kind of self-acceptance and self-love, and even deeper than that, just really being true to myself and listening to my own inner wisdom. When that whole bit cracked open for me, you know, I see you nodding, you're like, I knew that I needed to share what I had learned and the journey that I had been on, because I don't want anyone to have to wait any longer than they want to. Like, and everything comes in good time, right? Like maybe I wasn't ready for this expansion until now, but holy moly. Like if I could have figured some of this stuff out earlier in life, I think things could have been different. I'm grateful for everything I've learned, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And I have always had a little bit of envy for the people that just are almost born knowing exactly what they want to do. Like they're just born with their passion to be an artist or be an actor or whatever it is. And they just follow that and it's perfect. And I'm like, whoa. But like you said, though, I think that the unique journey that unfolds, that kind of leads you to, like you said, being cracked open and having cause to really look in the mirror and say, okay, what can I be doing here that is going to get me a different result than I've been getting? And getting in touch with that is so powerful. And when you do, I think everyone that I've talked to in this space, they just want to share and they just want to help other people. And I think that you touched on it perfectly when you said, that you weren't particularly unhappy, but you felt like there was more, but you didn't really know what to do with that for a while. And so, being a person that can just share that gift and share that story with people to help them gain the awareness is incredibly valuable, because I think that a lot of people just almost need a permission slip to do something different and to come out of the regular system. And
I
so
love that.
I think that that's what you do, and with your clients and in your book. And so tell me more about your book, and kind of one of the favorite things of your book that you have enjoyed sharing and teaching and leading others to learn about themselves.
One of the, I think, most unexpected bits of feedback that I've received about my book is that it's incredibly relatable. And honestly, that's just amazing to me, because that's how I want it to feel. Because so many times we'll look at other women or other people and think, gosh, they're doing that, but there's no way I could. Or this crap is happening to me. Certainly it's not happening to her. Probably is too. But I think one of my favorite sentiments from the book, there's a common phrase that a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen it, you've heard it probably all over Pinterest or social media or whatever, that says, comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yes.
So I take that and I add an extra level and I say, I agree, but I would also add that expectations are the thief of peace. And that's really kind of a big chunk of the foundation that the book is based upon, is that we get so preset or pre-programmed on expectations of how we're supposed to be, or what success in this life looks like, or what happiness in this life looks like, that we think it's kind of like if you're a Honda and I hand you an owner's manual for a Nissan, and you're like, oh, here's my owner's manual for this life, right? Like, here we go. And it's not the right owner's manual for you, right?
Yeah.
So it's an owner's manual and there's some great instructions in there, but it's not quite for you.
Right.
And so I think, when we're in our younger years, right, we kind of adapt rules and guidelines from the owner's manuals that our parents have developed. And that's fine. That's what we should do when we're younger, because, we don't have the cognitive ability quite yet. But as we get older, we do need that permission slip, as you said. I love that, to create our own owner's manual, create our own recipe for our own life. Like, my favorite cookie recipe might not be your favorite cookie recipe. That doesn't mean mine's better than yours. It's just different, right?
Right. It's so true.
That's pretty much the foundation of it. And just allowing people to understand, like, it's crazy. We want, like, when we crave that something more, and we're like, okay, but what is it? Okay, she looks like she has something more. What's she doing? Oh, maybe I'll do what she's doing. Again, probably not your blueprint, probably not your owner's manual, right?
Yes.
So you have to look inside.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's so interesting. Like, the concept that you're talking about is we pick up in childhood looking to other people for how to do life. We look to our parents, we look to the adults, and that's where we get our examples from. And I feel like, in general, for me, it was until I was kind of, like you said, like at the bottom pit, or that, like the dive of life's roller coasters, that I was like, oh geez, I think that I've been really just looking outside to see what other people are doing, for data points to inform me on how I should be living my life. And the problem with that is it's so limited and so constrictive, and it cuts off the flow of who I am and what makes me unique, and why I love that cookie recipe so much, and why, and so it's so powerful to, yes, begin that inner journey and find what makes life so special to you. And so I love that the comparison and the expectations are really the highlight, because that is, I think, one of the biggest obstacles to finally having inner peace and happiness in your being, is having the ability to kind of draw the line in the sand and understand what is outside of you versus what is coming from inside and what is really created by you. And Erika, when we were having our introduction talk, we spoke a little bit about consumption confusion and outside influence. And I'd love to hear a little bit more, and like, let's dive into that and how meaningful it is to really understand everything that's coming from the outside, and what we can do to separate outside from inside.
Ooh, yes. This is my favorite. Let's dive in. So yes, consumption can often cause confusion. And I think especially, nobody is a stranger to the fact that in this day and age, we have like consumption options. They're endless, right? They're at our fingertips. It's just, there's a plethora of things, right? You've got social media, podcasts, news, internet, like all of it. And again, as we have more of an opportunity to look into people's lives through these platforms, you get the highlight reel, but you see them, and it's kind of like you're talking about. We look to other people for examples where it's almost like we're mimicking, right? Like, okay, so okay, I'll just use a personal example, right? So at one point I was like really trying to, tone it up and like get my body back in the physical shape I wanted to be in. I was like, okay, so wait, like she's tracking macros. Okay, I should probably track macros because she looks good. I want to look good, right? And I know it's not always about physical, but this is just like the first example that came to my mind. And so immediately I was like, okay, she clearly knows what she's doing. I need to do that too. Like, that'll probably get me to my goal, input. And then there's another girl, like, she's talking about intermittent fasting. Oh, okay. But she's talking about, right. And it's like input to the point where it's like, well, wait, which one is right for me? Because I'm not just like her, and I'm not built just like him. And he has a whole lot more time on his plate to do things than I do. Like, you know what I mean? Not everyone's recipe is the same. You can't look at someone and do the exact same things they're doing and expect the same result that they had. And it's even a result that you're seeing from a very surface level. And when we really think about how much information we're consuming that may or may not actually be a fit for us, and how much that is confusing and like just making our brain swirl, blows my mind. And it honestly didn't hit me like a whole entire truckload of bricks until, and I think I mentioned this to you, I took a 1-week detox. No media, no social media, no TV, no news, no newspaper, no magazines, nothing. And the amount of clarity and the amount of peace and understanding and inner listening that I was able to kind of achieve during that time forever changed me. I know it sounds silly, and you see, well, I'm taking a break from social media, but legitimately, when you really cut everything out for the purpose of just tuning out the noise, to tune out the confusion and allow yourself to listen to yourself, then you realize the answers you need are in you already. Like, everyone's like, I don't know what I want to do. You do know, you just need to learn how to listen.
Yes, so much yes to that. And you bring up such an interesting point, and a valid point, in that so many actually in everything that you just said. And so one of them is when we're getting everybody's recipe, right? So it's like, we want to get fit, and so when we look outside, everyone has their own recipe and their own way for doing that. And so that is like one layer of confusion. But then the other piece of it is that not only are we getting input from from that, but we're just constantly getting input. We're getting input when we're at work. We're getting input when we, yes, turn on television or some sort of stimulus activity. We're getting information and we're getting just energy coming at us. And so I feel like it's even for me, the amount of time that I spend with myself and spend being quiet and just listening is such a small part of my day. And most people don't even have a practice where they are doing that. And even like 30 minutes is like nothing, right? So I can imagine after spending a week of just being with yourself and just listening to yourself, that it would have a really profound impact. But because it's just hard in the way that our modern society behaves, to just always have something coming at us. And so that's really impactful and so true, to just listen to who we are and what's going on inside of us.
And that's honestly one of the things, goodness, one of my counselors that I saw for years back in the day, she would always say to me, like when I kind of stepped away from organized religion, and she was like, you know, you left that and it left a hole. Like you need some kind of spiritual practice. And I was like, no, I don't, I'm good. And it wasn't until I started incorporating a personal spiritual practice again that I actually felt reconnected with that inner wisdom. And I really think that, you know, whether you are or aren't a religious person, it doesn't matter. Like if you are part of organized religion, great, still make time for your personal spiritual connection. If you aren't, don't like, ooh, it's just so important. I just want to like put a giant asterisk by that statement. Like spiritual practice is so important to your personal connection.
Right. I agree completely. And I think that people that have shied away from religion have, yeah, like I think that they can sometimes still not understand that they can have their own religion. Like they can, then that religion can be the relationship that they have with themselves and their heart. And so I think that it's so true that, and it goes back to, again, just following your own path and getting in touch with yourself. And like you said, even if you are in a religion, you can still have space for yourself and your relationship with yourself, and then have the added support of whatever it is that you believe in. And I think it's so important. Erika, I agree.
100%. It's if that's like the biggest piece of advice I could give anybody is don't, like, I didn't think they were separate. And when I learned they were, it was a beautiful, beautiful beginning for me. So.
Right. Oh my gosh. So what are, in this like just constant influx of information and stimulation, how can someone go about like beginning to discern what is right for them, and what their inner voice is versus just what they think they should be doing, or what someone else is telling them to do?
That's such an amazing question. And I really think it all boils down to, okay, so this is the best analogy I have for it. Is that, and why am I blanking on her name right now? Is it Marie Kondo, the like minimalist? Yes.
Yes.
So I believe she says, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you're cleaning out your closet, right, you hold it. And if it doesn't bring you joy, you throw it out, right?
Yes.
So I almost like to liken that same concept to things in your life. Like say I go to a specific, I don't know why I keep defaulting to like fitness analogies today, but let's say I go to a particular fitness class because all my friends go to it, right? But I actually really don't enjoy it that much. Then just don't go, right? Just don't do it. Like go pick something else.
Right.
And it really is just a matter of, is it something that feels in alignment with you? And that can even be a foreign topic to some people, like a foreign feeling, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things about where is it more of an obligation or is it an opportunity? Like those are two words that I really like people to try to wrap your head around, because if you've been invited to the family reunion and you like, don't really want to go, but you're just gonna go, right? Like that's an obligation. But if you're like, cool, I get to go see my cousins, like I'm super stoked to go make these connections with family I haven't seen in forever, that's an opportunity. That's in alignment. Obligation is not.
Yeah.
So that's like the most kind of real world, I think, comparison I can get there. But it really is bottom line, just it gets so buried in expectations still, right? Because like I have a very close friend and she has a very amazing career that's a little bit more like government focused, but really she wants to do humanitarian work. That's what her whole entire heart and being wants to do. But her parents are like not really on board and it would be like a huge pay cut for her. So she's in this like tug of war trying to figure out what to do. And obviously everyone, we have to pay bills and all those things, but in my perspective, in my opinion, she takes that jump and she makes that leap into a humanitarian position, and it will domino effect down her correct path of alignment in life, and all kinds of doors will open up for her. And next thing she knows, she's going to be insanely, sublimely happy doing what her heart has called for her to do.
Mm. I value that story that you brought up so much because I think that it's following the feeling. Yes, like, does this spark joy for me is so important. And I think that sometimes we even forget to look at things in our life to ask that question. Like we like you said, because especially if it's out of obligation or if it was kind of programmed into us at childhood that we needed to do certain things in certain ways or meet certain objectives or goals, then it's that expectation that is just kind of there. And we don't even realize, I feel like sometimes, that we can take a step back and say, wait, do I want this in my life? But then the other thing you said about your friend is that like she has to kind of make the choice to go from what her expectations were and have been to what like really fuels her soul and sparks joy for her. And I think that we're at this time where we're transitioning, I think, consciously, like globally, from a state of survival and living our being from a survival state where we're only focused on how do we just get through this life, to, okay, it's safe and it's probably even better to actually think about how do we not get through this life? How do we live this life to the fullest extent that we possibly can, and that brings us joy and makes us happy and is peaceful for us and enjoyable. And I think that it, where there seems to be a disconnect or trouble in making the leap is that people, and myself included, I'm not just saying like other people, I'm saying like people, because I've been there and gone through the journey too. It's hard to place value on joy and think that, and like approach a circumstance or a choice or a decision with joy and happiness and peace and contentment as having weight and and being a currency of themselves. Mm-hmm. And versus just the obviously the money currency or just the survival and security currency that typically the expected route or the route of this is what I should be doing provides. So I think that's really powerful. And I love that you are working with your friend to, hopefully follow that spark of joy. And I think at some point, and this is why the relationship with yourself is so important, because at some point you kind of have to take that leap of faith that, okay, I'm following what my heart wants to do, and that is going to be the most impactful thing that I can do and my best chance at enjoying my life.
I love that you are like I'm going to spin off just like a smidge, because you brought up joy as being part of kind of like life's currency. And there was some huge light bulb moments. And I'm just sharing this quickly. Some of my clients that are in my program right now, we had this huge light bulb moment for them where we were realizing, we were talking about like making shifts, and it's like, okay, well, what are all the things on your plate, right? Like we all have a plate, and it's like, well, I have my job and I have my kids, and then I have to drive my kids around, and then I've got to clean the house and make dinner and like take care of my parents, and there's all these things on our plate. And I said, the interesting thing is not one of you mentioned anything emotional. Emotions, like you said, for, is the currency of life, also take up space, on our plates. Like it's one of those things where you have to find balance, not just in your to-dos for the day, but life as a whole. Like if I'm in like a time of life where everything is anxious and the anxiety is like taking up a huge part of my plate, okay, well, guess what? I can't help with the community bake sale, and I can't volunteer at the blah, 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 blah. Right. So you have to take all of these things into consideration, just like you're talking. And I don't know, I think it's such a big thing that people have been missing. And I'll get a little like weird and statistic-y for just a minute, but there was an article I read not too long ago that was talking about, so maybe you've noticed this where you're at, but there's this huge like disparity across the country of like, so many businesses are trying to hire, they can't find good people, yet there's so many people that are looking for work. And it's just like, whoa, why aren't y'all like matching up, right? And this article was talking about the fact that post-pandemic, or because of the pandemic, people realize their time is worth more. They want to work at a job that means something, where they're having an impact. So they're being more particular about the jobs they're taking. And to me, that is like a major shift in the collective. And I love it. And then there's like this battle of like, greedy corporate America versus like us woke folk. And it's been pretty crazy. So.
Oh, I love that. Us woke folk. I heard that and I love it. Oh, but it's so true. I mean, the pandemic was tragic, and like everything else, it's when we go through those hard, challenging times, it's always in hindsight a catalyst for growth and for reflection and for questioning. And so, like you said, I mean, coming out of it, everyone, largely everyone is really realizing, I think, their worth, and that this whole paradigm of, you spend your life in school, and then as soon as you get out of school, you spend your life in a career, and then hopefully by the time you're on like the last quarter of your life or last third of your life, you can actually have some free time to enjoy it. And people are like, I don't know, like this whole idea is really not resonating with people anymore. And they're like, so I want to be spending my time at work doing something that isn't completely terrible and that does fulfill me in some way and that is enjoyable to be in, and doesn't have these toxic cultures and toxic way of being that just completely depletes you in life and really affects your ability to do everything else. And so it is really interesting to see what's going on in the States, and it's everywhere. It's not just the States. And it's very exciting. And one of the good things, I think, to silver linings to come out of COVID. And I just want to go back to what you were saying when you were talking about your group, like your group of clients, and you were talking about the emotions and not even really observing those emotions. And I think that this is so true. And this has been really prevalent for me in my business recently, because I've been kind of attacking my business in very much a do fashion. And like, I've got to, get out these social media posts and reach out to people on LinkedIn and do these podcast episodes. And even though the podcast is like my passion project, so it's not really work, but just do, I've got to be doing all of these things. And after like a couple weeks of really doing that hard, I like poked my head up after not seeing any momentum, by the way, and like reflected on the energy and the emotions that I was feeling as I was doing that. And it was like I was just kind of blindly doing something partially because it was my like an obligation, like a wanted obligation, but just something that I had to do. We all have to do work. We all have to, take care of our family, take care of our household. So it was that, but I was just going about it in a way that was kind of not at all paying attention to the emotion that I was feeling while I was doing it. And because of that disconnect, what happened was the quality of work that I was putting out wasn't as aligned, and it didn't feel as good as I want to be like in the space that I want to be doing when I'm creating. And so having the ability to reflect back and say, wow, okay, when I actually wrote myself in and I care about how I'm feeling, and I choose to do the things that spark joy for me, and choose to delegate or seek help in the things that don't, then I can work in more balance, and everything seems to then flow more easily and in more alignment than when I'm just doing.
Right. And I love that you're bringing like intention to your action, right? When I think about, do we seriously have to clean like the kitchen floors again? Rather than it being like, oh my gosh, I'm just like going through the motions and doing this, right? And this might sound silly, but it's like, okay, I'm steam cleaning my floors, like I'm disinfecting the floors. This is healthier for my family. I'm getting rid of toxins. Like, do you know what I mean? Like when you think about the intent, it really changes things. Like my intent on, why I go to work every day or whatever, like what's the real intention? Am I just going to put some dollars in the bank account, or am I going because I really want to help these clients and I really want to like grow this business? It really, the intention is an emotion tied to it is huge. And thank you for being vulnerable and like sharing that, you kind of like got in this motion and you were like, whoa, hold up. Like, wait a second. Cause we've all been there.
Yeah.
And probably we'll visit there again someday on and off.
Right. Well, okay. So I think that that's another great point to bring up though, and to talk about, is that again, kind of with this expectation, like when I think about the American dream, it is, I kind of said it earlier. It's very much like you go to school, you go to secondary school, you get married and have a family and get a house, and then you just kind of have Groundhog Day until you retire. And so
true.
So that idea, or that paradigm or viewpoint, it kind of is saying that there's milestones that you are just supposed to like achieve through life, and then once you do, then you're just coasting until the next one. And I think it's really interesting that when we stop looking at our life as linear like that, and we start looking at it as kind of just it like a never ending journey that is going in whatever direction you happen to be choosing it for it to go. Really, it can go up or down. I think we've all been on downward spirals and likewise upward spirals. But the thing is like those never really stop coming, because the very nature of life and of doing things and participating is that things come at us that trigger, like, I don't know if trigger responses is the right language that I want to be putting to this, but that we just interact with and engage with. And sometimes those engagements are easy and fun and lively and joyous and fantastic. And then sometimes, just by the nature of what we're doing here, they are difficult and challenging and icky, and you don't want to be there. And so I think that the process of having to work through those is never going to change and never going to go away. And we're never going to get to this point of utopia where in our lives where everything is just sunshine and rainbows and there's never a hard thing again, right? Like that is never going to happen. So I think that peace and joy, like sustainably, come from how well you can navigate the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of what life is, and just do it with more ease because you've built up the tools in your experience to cope and understand and handle what comes up in life.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree that that euphoric like utopia state is not a destination. It's a journey, right? Have you
Yes.
ever heard the like the pendulum analogy?
No.
I don't even remember where I originally heard it, but I've heard it in a few different places. So I don't feel like I need to necessarily pinpoint whomever it was, but you know, like the little balls, right? The pendulum balls. Okay. Played with those for hours as a kid, right? But the point is like there's always going to be swings in life, but you want to keep them from being the huge swings from like the super happy to the super sad. Like you just want to kind of keep it, you know, more in the middle range. And I, you know, I have to, for those of you that are seeing the video, I have to do the video, I have to do the fingers. Anyways, it's one of those things where it really is just finding that balance, right? You don't want to suppress what's happening or suppress your emotions. You want to just acknowledge them and observe them and manage them. But I don't want to say manage them as in like control them. There's a very, very fine line there. But it's such an amazing, beautiful journey. And that's really the whole purpose of everything that I'm really trying to get across is just having the courage and awareness. That's like the tagline of the book, is having the courage and awareness to live the life you were meant to. Because it takes courage to step outside of those expectations. And it takes awareness to understand that like, whoa, because that's how I was raised, that doesn't mean that's actually what I want. It's like this whole like mind bendery bit.
It is. And so, they do, those two things go hand in hand, because as soon as you have the awareness of like, oh, just because that's how it was doesn't mean that how it has to be. And then you have to have the courage to step out and do something different. And that in and of itself is so challenging. And so that's where like what would be your like takeaway or like first step starter kit to really begin to build that courage and explore what that awareness means for you?
Ooh, good one. So first and foremost, I would say beginner starter kit. Making time to sit with yourself, only just so that you can start to listen to yourself, right? So incorporate some kind of meditation. If you've never tried meditation before and you think it's supposed to be something, look into it deeper. I'm sure Renata's got tons of resources. There's other things I'm sure you can look up. It's not what you think. It's way easier, right? Just listening to yourself. So making that time. Next is honestly like debunking your own like stories in your mind. So that's the street slang for it. What I really am getting at is learning to let go of thoughts that you are so attached to, whether it's an expectation you've created in your own mind, a seed that was planted in your mind as a child, whatever it is, you know, these thoughts, these stories. I'm not good enough for this. I could never do that. Or I'm not supposed to be in that kind of a career. Or I can't be single my whole life. I'm supposed to get married and have a family, right? Learning how to understand that maybe these thoughts aren't true for you. Learning to let go of these thoughts in a graceful way with gratitude, understanding that it may not be your truth is a huge thing. And that's probably the two biggest things to get started.
I love that. Because I love what you said, the debunking, because it's so tangible to grab onto. And it's just such a perfect, I think, depiction of what it is that's going on, because it's like we have these programs that, like you said, have been picked up here, there, the other place. And really and I think that this is the power and exactly where they came from. It's just, what do we want to do with them now? And is this true for me now in the life that I want today, and for myself and for my future? Like, is this the path that I want to stay on? And so that, that's such a great way, I think, for people to begin to understand what is working for them and what isn't working for them, but on a level that is true to them, not based on expectations that they picked up or expectations that someone else is putting on them.
Exactly.
So I think that's really powerful. Thank you so much for those tips.
Oh,
and yes,
100%.
it's so true. There's a stigma around meditation. Usually like people's instinctual response is, I can't do that. I can't get my thoughts to stop. It's like, well, okay. It's not going to work if you say you can't do it.
Right?
Yeah, so yes, there's so many resources, and the meditation, it really is another one of those things where you have to have the relationship with meditation that is right for you. It doesn't have to be the perfect Buddhist monk meditation. You don't have to be an expert at it by that standard or that expectation, right? It's just about spending time with yourself and understanding what it is that feels good to you, and getting in that space where you can listen to what feels good for you, and what you need to hear from yourself and your body and all of it.
Yeah, that was like you brought up, you almost touched exactly on the one piece of advice from a friend of mine. She's a yoga instructor. That was the game changer for me for meditation. She sent me like, insight timer and like all these pre-recorded meditations. I said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Now, if I can just learn to quiet my mind. And she said, don't try to force it. Your mind will quiet when it's ready. That phrase alone changed everything for me, everything. And I was like, oh, duh. So yes, get into the meditation, learn to let go of those thoughts. And I think I've got a guide to learning how to gracefully let go that we're going to link, I think, right? That's a big one. That is a big one. That's a great jumping off point, starter kit point. I love that you said starter kit. That's like I might steal that from you. That's great. I'm just using it.
Do it. Oh, I love it. Well, Erika, thank you so much for showing up and being on the show, and for diving in with how we can begin to have that awareness and the courage to live the life that we want to be living. It's not easy to just decide that that's what we're going to do, especially if it goes against the status quo and conditions and programs and things that we have picked up along the way so far, and to just kind of throw it all out the window and start again is what it feels like sometimes. So thank you for giving tips, and I look forward to fully diving into your book, which I didn't get a chance to do before we spoke here, but I'm so excited to, because this conversation has just been beautiful, and your tips are just spot on with what people can do to really begin the journey and what that looks like for them, and just be able to navigate life in just an easier way, like you said, with more balance, and the swings aren't as harsh. The water is a little bit more calm, and that is the sweet spot.
Exactly. Well, I just want to say thank you for having me. You are a beautiful soul, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to more.
I know. I'm so excited we'll be connected. And so, Erika, in the show notes, for everyone listening, we will link Erika's book and her website. And she is also offering a free starter kit so that you can get started. So please check out the show notes so that you can get going on your inner journey and connect with Erika, and she can help you along the way. So thanks so much for joining us.
Aw, thank you.